Hi everyone, Mark here from Audio Pursuit, and today I want to finish up our review of Adcom's classic amplifiers. In this case, the GFA 555II. Now if you recall, there was first the Adcom series, the GFA 555, 545, and 535. The 555-2 came out in 1990. Now, the original was designed by Nelson Pass, like the others, whereas this one, after doing some research, I found out that Walt Morey actually went back and redid the design. Obviously, the inspiration by Nelson Pass was still there, but he did some changing up. And when you look at the pictures that I show from the internals of the original 555 and the 555-2, you can tell the changes. Now, when talking about the difference between the original 555 and the 555-2, it becomes mentioning about the triple Darlington output stages. Now, further research showed that between two different test bench reviews, this amplifier clipped out at either 260 watts or 288 watts into 8 ohms. Now, to just give you an idea, remember this is rated at 200 watts per channel. Now, I will tell you this, when you power up the 555-2 in my house, the lights dimmed a little bit, much like what happens many times when you start up a vacuum cleaner. So this thing does draw in the current. Don't be surprised. But there's a benefit to all that we'll get to in a little bit. As you can see, it has the toggle switch that, as I told you, I'm a huge fan of, much better than the push buttons. You also have your two lights here for your high current when it starts clipping, and then the thermal protection. So if this thing starts running too hot, eventually that light will come on. But here's the deal. I've never been able to get it there. Even with Magnepans, whether it be the 1.6 QRs, which I used to own, or my current Magnepan 0.7s. It's tough to do. You really got to be pushing this puppy. And the other thing is that it doesn't get hot. This amplifier surprisingly stays quite cool even when driven hard. Now it gets a little warm when driven really hard, but it doesn't get hot. And Adcom even offered a fan option, which I can't even imagine the amount of noise you would have heard off of that. I mean, if it's just a little computer fan, you're still going to hear it. But I've never found the need for it. On the back side, you get a toggle switch that flips between bridged and unbridged mode, so you can get two of these together. And interestingly enough, about 4 years ago, I actually picked up a second 555-2 to try out with my Magnepan 1.6 QRs, thinking, oh, I'll go dual mono. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't care for the sound. It was grainier, it was drier, and it didn't ring my bell. Let's put it that way. I didn't find the gain in power was worth the drop in sound quality. So I would tell most of you, if you want to do Adcom, go look up their dual mono amps. They're designed specifically for it. But for most of us, this beast will do if this is what you're looking for. Now also around back you get just your RCA inputs and then your speaker outputs and a total of 5 fuses to access. 2 for each channel and 1 overall for the power supply. So those viewers saying, boy, you know, mine died and I just haven't looked at it, check your fuses. You might be surprised. So when you hook up the 555-2, what do you get? You get grunt horsepower. You get the torque. This amp is gutsy. It is ballsy. It is sheer power. If you play golf, if you remember Bryson DeChambeau before he lost weight this current year, but in the previous years, just a beast off the tee. Yep, that's what this is. But I will tell you this. You do get more grain than a current amplifier. You will hear that graininess in there. So it does have its limits. But let me tell you something. When you can find these things for about $400, $450, maybe $500 in really good shape, is it worth it? Absolutely. I challenge you to find a $500 amplifier that can do what this thing can do. So yes, you will give up a little bit of the clarity that the other ones have, but I promise you, what you're going to gain is far more. So what does that mean? Well, if you have speakers that have a really open top end, they're almost bright in some ways, you may not find this amplifier to be the best match for them. On the other hand, I can tell you, with my LSA Signature 80s, nice match there. With the Magnepan .7s, oh, let me tell you, if you want solid state sound and power, this is going to give it to you. Now, if you find B&K or some of the other brands that have that same kind of heavy power of the time but cost a whole bunch more, like Bryson, which I love, their amplifiers are amazing, but you're going to pay a whole lot more for them to get rid of that graininess. So it's something to consider. But still, for a vintage amplifier that is now 33 years old, this thing can deliver the goods. And I'm happy to have it as part of my collection. It sits down in the bottom here, and that may explain why I'm sitting on the floor, because flat out, I did not want to lift this 40-pound beast out of my custom cabinet and then lift it up to put it on the table to talk to you. It was easier for me to sit on the floor. So what kind of music goes best with the GFA 555 series? Rock and roll. Let me tell you, put on Boston, their first album, and sit back and be blown away. Crank up the volume, go for it. Led Zeppelin, absolutely. The Who, same thing there. Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, hey, go to town. You're going to have a great time with this amplifier. If you want to get into progressive rock, yeah, Dark Side of the Moon, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Oh yeah, just listen to what this thing does. It just grabs you. And it tells you, here's a performance, and it's coming, and get ready. With acoustic music, well, let's put it this way. It's nice. You're going to hear the deeper bass. You're going to get a forward projection out of it. I actually prefer the 545 to this with that type of music. I think there's a little bit more ease to it. As I said, the 545 is confident, hey, I've got this handled. The 555 says, buckle your seatbelt, you're in for a show. And that's what you get. So it's aggressive. And if you don't care for aggressive, then the 555 may not be your cup of tea. And that's okay. But it's still, if you need big power for the price, this is an amplifier you want to go with. Now you get into classical music. And here I will tell you that really you need the Beethoven and the Brahms. You need heavy duty music. The lighter stuff, if Vivaldi, I'm not a big fan of Vivaldi on this. This amplifier just, you know, it isn't light about it. It powers itself through. And that's not always a great thing. So, you know, for once in a while, it's fine. But if that's your style of music, then check out something else. Now, what if you've decided, hey, you know, I can't give up on my 555, but I sure would like to get it fixed up? Well, there's an upgrade route. And it's called Hop's Brain. Look them up on the internet. Some of the pictures of what this gentleman does is pretty amazing. And when you read back what people have said about their return amplifiers, they just love it. If I had some extra cash lying about, I would love to send this thing in just to see what this gentleman can do. And I bet it'd be pretty darn amazing. So that's a choice for you. If you're one of those people who say, hey, I got my system for life, but I recognize that, hey, you know, things age, it's time, check it out. As I've said before, when buying used equipment, especially the Adcoms, make sure you have the buyer pop the hood on these and look down in and check for any leaking capacitors. That's an absolute must. Tell them ahead of time if you're driving over there to see it. This is what you're going to be, this is what you want, and it's important that it be done or else you're not going to buy it. If you're buying online, email them. Say, hey, I want pictures of the internals, and can you timestamp it, which basically means nothing more than, hey, grab a newspaper, grab your phone, show you know, basically a news website with the current news of the day, take a picture with it so you know, and then take a look for any leaking capacitors. That's how you do those things. And don't be afraid to ask, because if they're not willing to do it, then chances are there's something wrong and you need to move on. So as I conclude my tour of the Adcom amps, let me just say, each one of them offers something special. The little 535, boy, if you don't have a whole lot of room, that little amplifier will do you just fine. You're going to enjoy it. Now, if you want something that gives you a little bit more gusto, you know, is very easy about its sound, you know, just is confident and just kind of disappears, the 545 is your model. If you need the power and you need to feel the music, jump up to the 555. You won't be sorry with any of them. And you're going to enjoy that vintage sound back when companies had a distinctive sound, and these do. So until next time, take care.